What's up, everybody?
Hey, hey.
It's 11 o'clock on the West Coast, and this is Controlled. I'm DC, and I'm here with Coach Cella.
Hey, hey.
And can't get our camera to work. Ah!
Not so controlled.
Not so controlled. Our camera is out of control. All right, let's get into it anyway. Maybe we'll go right into headlines while I try to figure this out.
No, I think you have a little time to figure it out.
All right. Yeah, why can we not see us?
I think it's just us here, so I think we're good.
I don't think it's a problem right now.
I don't think it's an issue.
As soon as somebody shows up.
Yeah. Hey, if you're here, just say hi so we know.
So we know you're here.
So we know you're here, and we'll play the headlines for you.
I don't know. Right.
But we're going to, in the meantime,
Aha.
work on fixing the camera.
Aha!
Hi.
I got something working.
All right. I had no doubt, baby.
Bingo.
I knew you could do it.
I don't know. I think I
I
gotta
knew
take
you
this
could
off.
do it.
That's a requirement. Glasses are. I might have to leave these on for a second.
Yeah, I like the glasses on.
I'll go shoot.
I like the Schumer look.
I'll go Shuma.
I mean, since we're doing
I introduced a bill.
Mm.
It's a very good, comprehensive bill. And I want you to reelect me.
All right. Hey,
Julie
there she is.
Love!
We can get started
We
now.
can start the show now.
Hi, Julie Love. It's so good to see you.
Awesome. Very good. Very
Cool.
good. Welcome, guys. This is Controlled. Hi, Julie Love.
How's Humboldt?
How
How
is-
are you?
Listen.
Tell us. Lots of good stuff.
Arcata.
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 Mm-hmm.
Arcata.
Mm-hmm.
It's decriminalizing plants,
Plants.
ethnogenic plants.
Ethnogenic
Is it ethnogenic?
and theogenic.
Entheogenic.
Entheogenic.
I probably say that wrong in the headlines.
It's okay.
I think I do.
You're learning.
I'm learning.
You know.
Entheogenic.
Entheogenic.
That would be psilocybin,
Entheogens.
mushrooms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms.
Mind expanding plants.
Peyote falls into that category.
But you gotta be careful with that because it's endangered.
It's protected.
Protected.
And endangered. Yeah, that's why it's not on many lists, I think.
Right.
Actually.
Right.
But like, what else? Like, not ketamine, but
No, not
kratom. Kratom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could go kratom up in
Everything is
Arcata.
the grooviest out there in Humboldt.
Arcata seems to be the next city that's gonna move forward with decriminalizing plants like Oakland and Denver.
And
So that's kind of cool.
and East Hampton
Right?
in
East Hampton.
Massachusetts and Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Very exciting.
Also, they're popping up like mushrooms.
Yes. Like mushrooms.
All over the place.
We
We watched Fantastic Fungi finally.
Yes. I'd like to watch it again because it was after work.
Yeah, we should definitely need to watch it again.
Yeah.
But it's a tour de force of Paul Stamets, to be sure, and it's really, really awesome.
It inspired me to want to take Dave on a foraging trip, like where we go with a group to go foraging in maybe like Mendocino or Eugene. Let us know if there's anything like that in your community so that we can potentially plan that little trip.
That's the
So
problem.
cool. Yeah, I remember, you lived in Arcata for a couple of years. So anyway, it looks like we have 7 watching now. So how about
And I
we
just
get
screwed up the
into-
camera again, so
Oh,
I
you
think
did?
I think we should
It's
go
a
to
perfect time.
to go into headlines.
Yeah.
I definitely need another screen.
So thank you
to fix that
everybody
in
for
our new
joining
place.
us.
We have a
super
permanent
stoked
place.
to have you.
We're so excited.
And we're moving to Burbank. We have a
moving to
place in
Burbank.
Burbank. But it's great. We're excited
are
about it.
moving to Burbank.
It's a good little house. We'll have a different background, or maybe not. Anyway, Dave, why don't you launch the headlines? shall you?
Let's do it. We'll
All right.
watch some headlines and we come back. We'll talk about the news and everything that's going on in the cannabis world.
And Plant Kingdom.
Wait, hang on.
We'll get there. get there.
Using in
There's lots of
headphones.
technical things happening. Soon you'll have your double
my
screens
volume's
back.
down. That's why. Yeah, I'm just working on 17 inches.
Soon you'll have your double screen. Normally Dave has like a full windshield of stuff in front of him. Right now he's just working on his laptop.
I can expand when we land at the new place.
He has about 35 screens open right now. I think that's probably a conservative number. Okay, here we go.
These are your controlled headlines for Saturday, August 7th. While the House of Representatives goes on its recess without a floor vote on protecting states' legal, medical, and adult use cannabis businesses, the Senate continues to make moves on cannabis reform, as the Senate Appropriations Committee advanced a measure known as the Veterans Equal Access Amendment, which would restrict the Department of Veterans Affairs from taking disciplinary actions against VA doctors solely for the act of issuing medical cannabis recommendations in a manner that is compliant with their state's laws. Senate leaders also released a massive and long-anticipated infrastructure bill, and after weeks of bipartisan negotiations, the legislation includes provisions that aim to allow researchers to study the actual cannabis that consumers are purchasing from state legal dispensaries instead of having to use only government-grown cannabis. The bill also encourages states that have enacted legalization laws to educate people about impaired driving. Meanwhile, a GOP senator who is the top co-sponsor of cannabis banking legislation is also seeking to prevent people from using federal financial assistance at cannabis dispensaries as part of a new large-scale welfare bill. Senator Steve Daines, Republican of Montana, the lead Republican sponsor of the Secure and Fair Enforcement, or SAFE Banking Act, included language in a separate welfare-related bill that would make it so people could not use temporary assistance for needy families funds at, quote, any establishment that offers marijuana for sale, unquote. Activists say the bill unfairly targets the most vulnerable people and perpetuates cannabis stigmas. The title of the provision itself, The Welfare for Needs, Not Weed, has on its own drawn the ire of legalization advocates, who argue it unnecessarily plays into the negative cannabis stereotypes. They also argue that it is inappropriate to tell medical cannabis patients they can't use funds for their medicine. A California state senator is asking the head of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to provide clarification on whether hospitals and other healthcare facilities in legal cannabis states can allow terminally ill patients to use medical cannabis without jeopardizing federal funds. State Senator Ben Hueso, a Democrat, has sent a letter to the HHS Secretary Javier Becerra and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator Chiquita Brooks-LeSueur, inquiring about the policy. Confusion about possible implications for permitting cannabis consumption in health facilities led pro-legalization Governor Gavin Newsom to veto a bill known as Ryan's Law, sponsored by the senator, meant to address this issue in 2019. The senator hopes this clarification will prevent a second veto. Making history, Ohio lawmakers have formally introduced a bill to legalize cannabis possession, production, and sales, the first effort of its kind in the state legislature. This comes as activists are pursuing a separate ballot initiative that would effectively force the legislature to consider similar cannabis reforms. Representatives Casey Weinstein, a Democrat, and Terrence Upchurch, a Democrat, filed the legislation weeks after circulating a co-sponsorship memo to colleagues to build support for the measure. The 180-page bill would legalize possession of up to 5 ounces of cannabis for adults 21 and over and allow them to cultivate up to 12 plants for personal use and a 10% tax. It also includes provisions to expunge prior convictions for possession and cultivation activities that are being made legal under the measure. An appeals panel in Texas issued a mixed judgment Thursday in a lawsuit challenging the state's ban on smokable hemp. Regulators may enforce a ban on the processing and manufacturing of products intended for smoking or vaping, the court ruled, but they cannot prevent such products made elsewhere from being sold in the state. The decision creates a situation in which consumers may be able to freely purchase smokable hemp flower and hemp-derived CBD oils for vaping, but only if the products are processed outside Texas and imported into the state. Big news out of Oklahoma, as a group of activists wants to put a pair of cannabis initiatives on the state ballot in 2022, one that would overhaul the state's massive medical cannabis system and another to legalize cannabis for adults 21 and older. While the medical and adult use measures would appear even overlap to some degree. The medical proposal would create a new state agency to regulate all types of legal cannabis, including hemp and high-THC cannabis, and would establish funding for programs including research, environmental remediation, and mental health services. The adult use proposal, meanwhile, would allow any adult 21 and older to purchase cannabis products from existing dispensaries. Individuals could also grow up to 12 cannabis plants at home and keep or give away the cannabis it produces. The adult use proposal would also make changes to the medical program and the state's criminal justice system. If passed, it would establish a 15% tax on non-medical sales to adults, but reduce taxes on medical products from the current 7% tax down to 0. It would also provide for the expungement of past cannabis-related convictions. In addition to Oklahoma, NORML is reporting that cannabis reform activists in 7 other states around the country are already working to qualify various statewide reform measures for the 2022 ballot. Those include Arkansas, Idaho, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, South Dakota, and Wyoming. This from The Intercept. Last week, the New York Times reported that Biden administration lawyers had concluded that the Trump administration memo correctly interpreted the law and that thousands of people in home confinement must be returned to prison after the yet-to-be-determined end of the, quote, pandemic emergency period, unquote. About 2,000 people stand to be impacted, with the rest having now completed enough of their sentence to qualify for early release under the standard guidance. The Biden Justice Department's position is especially shocking, considering President Biden, after all, campaigned on loosening drug laws and said that people with cannabis records would comprise a relatively small percentage of the federal prison population, and they should be freed. On the campaign trail, candidate Biden said this.
I'll be very brief. Number one, I think we should decriminalize marijuana, period. And I think anyone who has a record should be let out of jail, their record's expunged, it be completely zeroed out. But I do think it makes sense, based on data, that we should study what the long-term effects are for the use of marijuana. That's all it is. Number one, everybody gets out, record expunged. Second,
everybody gets out, record expunged. Do better, Joe. Meanwhile, another Biden appointee seems to think locking people up for cannabis is a bad idea. The nation's top doctor said recently that it's time to stop incarcerating people for marijuana use. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy was asked this question on CNN.
Well, when it comes to marijuana, Dan, I think we have to let science guide us. And we know that the science tells us that there are some benefits for marijuana from a medical perspective, but there are also some harms that we have to consider, and we have to put those together as we think about the right policy. Now, when it comes to decriminalization, I don't think that there is value to individuals or to society to lock people up for marijuana use. I don't think that serves anybody well.
Since we're following science, Dr. Murthy, let's start by calling it cannabis and not marijuana. Finally, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has unveiled the draft of a comprehensive cannabis reform bill that would legalize the plant federally by removing it from the Controlled Substances Act, while letting states continue to decide whether to prohibit or allow commercial sales. The Cannabis Administration and Opportunities Act builds on the MORE Act in a number of ways, including a graduated tax scheme from 10 to 25%. But the measure faces a daunting challenge in the U.S. Senate, where the bill will likely require 60 votes for passage, meaning at least 10 Republicans would have to be on board. And in reality, Senator Schumer won't have the support of a number of conservative Senate Democrats. So the bill that actually comes out of this discussion draft may be significantly different than this most comprehensive version. The public comment period is open until September 1st. Anyone interested in cannabis reform should provide comments to cannabis_reform@finance.senate.gov. While the House of Representatives did manage to approve a large-scale spending bill before they took off for recess, the approved package of spending legislation contains measures to provide protections for banks that work with state legal cannabis businesses and also allows legalization of cannabis sales in Washington, D.C., among other drug policy provisions. The appropriations legislation and attached reports also direct federal government agencies to reconsider policies that fire employees for using cannabis in compliance with state law, criticize restrictive hemp regulations, encourage CBD to be allowed in foods, and urge expanded research on marijuana and other substances. Early in July, a group of 18 congressional lawmakers signed a letter condemning the suspension of Star Olympic sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson from participating in the competition this year because of a failed marijuana test. They are requesting the athletic governing bodies make a policy change to prevent it from happening again. They said the Sha'Carri Richardson suspension for marijuana use highlights an arbitrary distinction that makes less sense than ever before. Meanwhile, A.J. Harrington writes in Forbes, "Cannabis takes the world stage at the Tokyo Olympics." For the first time in the Olympics' 125-year modern history, elite athletes are being open about their use of cannabis products to prepare them for the world's biggest stage in sports. Leading the charge is Olympic gold medalist and U.S. soccer women's national team star Megan Rapinoe, who incorporates CBD into her training routine using products from Mendi, a company founded by her sister, Rachel Rapinoe, and Brett Schwager. So Sha'Carri Richardson sits out the Olympics as Megan Rapinoe promotes CBD. According to WAMU, critics are outraged over alleged hypocrisy and even racism, saying the anti-doping agency for the games is turning a blind eye for the white athlete on the heels of suspending black sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson after testing positive for marijuana earlier this month. NORML has announced that it has updated and revised its publication, Clinical Applications for Cannabis and Cannabinoids, a review of the recent scientific literature 2000 through 2021. This updated edition reviews over 450 peer-reviewed studies assessing the safety and efficacy of either whole plant cannabis or individual cannabinoids in 23 different patient populations, including autism, chronic pain, diabetes, fibromyalgia, migraine, and post-traumatic stress. Since NORML issued the previous edition of this report in 2017, scientists have published thousands of studies relevant to the medicinal properties of cannabis. This is reflected in NORML's new report, which highlights nearly 100 newly published studies, making it one of the most up-to-date and comprehensive compendiums of the utility of medical cannabis available. This story from Forbes: cannabis and other drugs have been illegally smuggled into the United States from Colombia for decades, but global cannabis cultivator Clever Leaves, which has a grow facility in the Andes Mountains, plans to import $25 million worth of pharmaceutical-grade marijuana to supply researchers in the U.S. Clever Leaves, which boasts 1.8 million square feet of cultivation space across 18 greenhouses in Pesca, Colombia, partnered with California-based biopharmaceutical research company, which has a license with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, to import cannabis legally. Clever Leaves will supply federally approved researchers to study cannabis for the future development of new pharmaceutical therapies and medicines. Kyle Detweiler, CEO of Clever Leaves, says the company hopes to advance the science around cannabis as a pharmaceutical product. Quote, "Cannabis does not belong on Schedule 1. It's time to change that," unquote, says Detweiler, referring to how marijuana is listed under the federal government's most restrictive categories. This reported in Westworld, holders of the first cannabis research license in Colorado for clinical trials, Denver-based MedPharm Holdings has been leading the state in medical marijuana research by focusing on neuropharmacology and Alzheimer's disease. But without federal approval, MedPharm still struggles to gain wider acceptance in the traditional medicinal world. MedPharm is currently waiting on a final verdict from the Drug Enforcement Administration for a license to grow federally approved cannabis for medical research. The company has been waiting since 2016 for a decision from the DEA, but is optimistic one will be made soon after the agency reached out with some follow-up application recommendations this year. Well, it looks like Apple is finally easing its policy on cannabis businesses as the first full-service marijuana delivery app launches on the Apple Store. Ease has launched an updated iPhone app that finally allows people to purchase and pay for marijuana deliveries with the app. This comes shortly after Apple instituted an Apple Store policy change that removed restrictions on cannabis businesses. You still can't use a credit card, only a debit or cash. In other Schedule 1 news, psychedelics decriminalization advancing in 3 more cities spanning from coast to coast. From Massachusetts to California, advocates are actively making new strides to reform local laws governing psychedelics like psilocybin and ayahuasca, building on a national movement that has already seen numerous cities decriminalize ethnogenic substances. New cities include East Hampton, Massachusetts, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Arcata, California, where the Arcata Public Safety Committee is back decriminalizing psychedelic plants and fungi. The Arcata Public Safety Committee voted to return the resolution to decriminalize the use of psychoactive mushrooms and other ethnogenic plants back to the Arcata City Council for a final vote. The proposal was brought forth by Decriminalize Nature Humboldt during the Arcata City Council's July 21st meeting. Following a split vote on a motion to move forward, the council agreed to send the proposal to the Public Safety Committee for additional review. The city has the power to prioritize where law enforcement goes and then where the resources go for that, said Dr. Larry Norris, co-founder of the Oakland-based campaign Decriminalize Nature. Quote, it doesn't change the law. There are no changes to municipal code, but deprioritization really allows for the city to say, hey, plants and mushrooms aren't really a big priority for us. We have other things going on. And finally, the Oregon Health Authority and the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board have reached a milestone in the effort to build the nation's first state psilocybin therapy program. The board, a governor-appointed advisory board created by the passage of Ballot Measure 109 in November, completed the report summary and findings showing that the active ingredient in psychedelic mushrooms holds promise as an option to address mental health issues. Those are your controlled headlines for August 7th. Follow me at DC420LA on Twitter for breaking cannabis news. Unmute even here. Unmute on the Zoom.
Yeah.
No, stop. Thank you. All right, those were your controlled headlines. Lots of mushrooms in the headlines this week. Very exciting. Very exciting. All of this psilocybin action and
All the action.
all the action, really.
It is. I mean, it's not what we want. We want more, but it's a great place to start. You know, it's a good place to start. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with that. Hey, there is another story I recently found about psilocybin. How it induces rapid and persistent growth of neural connections in the brain's frontal cortex, according to this Yale study.
Yeah, that
and
was
that
came out last July or just came
mid-July.
out mid-July.
Yeah, mid-July. And I'm excited about it because, of course, as many of you know, I am most concerned about brain disease, especially dementia. And I think that psilocybin may have some really great implications for helping people living with dementia. Neuronal connections and neuroplasticity are things that are really important for people living with dementia and older people in general, people overall, I suppose. But it's a very exciting thing, and I'm excited that the studies are, developing faster than, than what cannabis took. Some might even say that cannabis is kind of like a gateway drug to new studies. So that's pretty great.
Well, it looks like there's a lot of studies, a lot more studies happening, as you see, and Colombia importing
Yes.
medical grade cannabis. Like California needs it, but dang that DEA and that Schedule 1 of drugs, because we are. Tilray imported a bunch of cannabis pills to do a study in San Diego as well last year.
Well, the changes that they're making in the minibus bill that you talked about in the headlines should help to ease some of those restrictions for studying. If you read only one article that we talked about, read this article. It's extremely comprehensive and talks about all the great things that are happening and some of the not so great, but mostly great things that are happening. Although
you're encouraged by what the lawmakers are doing.
I'm encouraged, but they're doing a lot of this. The lawmakers are saying, oh, NIDA, the DEA, the FDA, you need to relax the rules. You need to chill out on your restrictions on Schedule 1 studies and stuff. And the agencies always say, well, it's a Schedule 1 substance, so we can't study it. And the lawmakers are saying, you need to relax your rules. But the rules are because it's a Schedule 1 substance. So really the trip is that lawmakers need to change the schedule status of the things that they want to study, or they need to redefine the definition of Schedule 1. So write your lawmakers, write your electeds.
I think they're just, I would say it's probably going to be rescheduled. That's one possible outcome.
I think we need to tell them what we think. I think that's the number one thing. They seem to
literally
be
the only thing that Biden has sort of been on board doing.
Biden is super disappointing. So he needs to be, let's just put that right out there.
I don't think he's overturned one Trump era policy except the eviction moratorium,
Yeah,
which got,
yeah.
of course, got extended.
Super
thanks to Cory Bush.
disappointing. Super disappointing. But he doesn't tweet hateful shit all day. So that's apparently the low bar that we've established for President of the United States.
Welcome everybody. Vegan Metro's here. Jilly Love 101 is here.
So good to have
Jilly
you.
Love, always great to see you guys. Gypsy Lady Lee is here. Cannabis Sativa is here. All friends of the show. Dutch Grow 420, welcome to the show. Welcome to Controlled, where we're going to talk more about these stories that are happening in the news this month, these last 30 days since our last show. Of course, if you watched Out of Control on the day of Chuck Schumer's long-awaited bill, you saw it live, the press conference here on the channel, and we discussed it briefly. But there are a number of, it basically is they took the MORE Act, increased the tax, and then threw it out there, I think is what they did.
Yeah, I'm not into it. I don't like the taxes. I think it's insane. There's some really good things happening in the States. Oklahoma is proposing, some changes to their medical to also usher in adult use, which a lot of us, Cannabis Sativa, and of course everyone in the chat. Oh, hi, History Buffering. Nice to see you as well. I'm sorry, full-on squirrel.
It's good to welcome new people.
It is. It's good to welcome new people. But anyway, so Oklahoma is going to be moving forward toward hoping to adult use of cannabis. They essentially think that their medical law is basically adult use now with one extra hoop. In the future, we're concerned about how things might change because our medical law got decimated when adult use came
Always
online,
happens.
right?
Massachusetts
and it always
too,
happens.
right?
Massachusetts too, right?
Cannabis Sativa.
So
everywhere it happens.
When I read that
price goes up.
When I read that Oklahoma was going to be changing their law, I was alarmed. But then I read that one of the changes is that they're going to move from 7% tax for medical to 0. I like that. And 15% tax for adult use. And that's fine with me. I think that extra hoop that you have to go through because you're actually a medical patient is worth 0% tax.
The best little medical marijuana law in the country, working to get better by removing the tax for patients, which is the most logical thing. We couldn't do that in California. California Normal had a bill going through the legislation, and it failed to take away medical tax.
That doesn't mean it can't happen in the future.
Well, they're going to try to next year to take away both adult use and medical tax. So they're going to try again, trying to lower.
There's no way that
overall
they're going to
tax.
be able to take away adult use tax.
So lowering the taxes for patients, they are going to allow, which is very smart, just open up the dispensaries to adults. That's a good plan. And hopefully these will do well and then we'll see, of course, what the legislature and what the politicians do to it after the state, the people pass it. But lots of ballot initiatives going on. Cannabis Sativa, you mentioned, I believe Arkansas is happening. Idaho is happening for both depenalization and medical. Missouri looks like is going for full legalization. Nebraska, medical. Ohio, of course, we mentioned in both stories, is going to push the legislature. And I agree, Cannabis Sativa, that DeWine will not sign that bill if they do pass it. So this ballot initiative may become the only way Ohio gets legalization. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But it is encouraging to see another state legislature bringing forth a legalization bill. So. But good on you, Oklahoma. Looks like you're making some good moves to make the system even better and open it up to the people. Free the plant, free the people.
What I've noticed also, if you guys look at the number of stories that talk about the third wave of states that are coming online or wanting to come online with cannabis legalization, either medical or full adult use, Arkansas, Idaho, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, South Dakota,
Third wave?
North Dakota. Yeah,
Third wave in
I feel like they're the third wave
Right.
because California and Washington and we're the first ones, and then there was a bunch of real serious draconian second wave folk, and now this third wave of states that are coming online that have waited the longest. It's really interesting to me that most of them have a home grow guarantee in the initiatives that they're proposing.
Yeah. Well, if they're the activism,
Bootstrapping states.
it's an act. They're activist driven, and so the ideology of being able to do that. I mean, Wisconsin, or is it Wisconsin, or no? I think it's Wisconsin. I think it's in their constitution
Right.
that they are able to grow whatever they want and sell it sell it out of their backyard.
Minnesota.
So
too.
Minnesota, that's
Minnesota.
it. It's Minnesota. Thank you,
Minnesota.
Minnesota. So very encouraging where the states are going to do it. Cannabis Sativa brought up passing the States Act as opposed to trying to push this cannabis. What is it called? There's no cat. It's not catchy, so it's hard to. It's hard. I don't think they even mentioned Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act. It's definitely not catchy. One of the things, there's a lot of pros and cons to what's going on in this bill. One of the things I think is interesting is it tells the CBD people you can put it in the food.
Right.
And we talk on Out of Control. We talked briefly about the who's going to be regulating cannabis under this bill, and it's FDA, the TTD, and ATF, which is going to be, of course, the enforcement arm of the structure, taking over for the DEA, getting a new word in their name, specifically about cannabis. So, and then of course you've got your 10 to 25% graduated tax, which is outrageous. We have a 41% tax on cannabis in the city of Los Angeles because we use that new Ease app, didn't we?
Yeah. So I tried the new Ease app because I'm very interested in patient access, and if you can pay for your cannabis without having to go get cash, that's sort of a big deal for homebound people. It doesn't really help people who are living in assisted livings necessarily, although in the Ease app, you can pay with a ACH, with a bank transfer. You still have to show an ID at the point of sale, but the ACH transfer is the new wrinkle. You still can't use Visa or MasterCard, of course, but ACH directly on the app is what's new. Drivers for Ease apparently have always had terminals with them so that you could always use debit cards. We didn't use Ease for many, many years. We preferred...
we were using it when they actually were taking credit cards.
Right.
Illegally.
We thought that was great, and we wanted to support it. So, but
that blew up.
We didn't know it was illegal.
So that's a clarification from the headlines. That's you are able to pay online
Right.
if you're willing to do an automatic bank transfer
Right.
through an ACH on the website, and then you just show your ID. So that would be helpful in that type of a situation, delivery in a residential care.
As long as the receiver has ID.
Right, has ID,
has to
has
be
valid
the
ID,
ID.
which is not always a thing.
Right.
But it's just another barrier. It is is a barrier to access, or is it, how many do? This is their okay. So Ease
It's helpful for the caregiver at home.
I have a real problem with their Ease's business model. I'm not, they've gone through a lot of transitions. They've changed a lot over the years since the beginning.
I'm sure they're trying to get better and better.
They are doing a lot of absorbing of small businesses.
Some might
As
say
a lot
that's
of-
helping small businesses.
As a lot of large companies are. I mean, we're collecting stories and doing a deep dive in some of the social equity problems here in California and Los Angeles, and we're going to talk about that on a future show. But the social equity systems around the country are all broken, every one of them. There's not one that's doing it well. Maybe Oakland has some positive aspects to it, the city of Oakland. But basically, social equity is a racket for cities and local governments to have a bunch of money in their coffers and not actually use it.
And wealthy investors to get into the market using the guise of social equity.
That's right.
And
Which is also a double-edged situation because
Right.
it's literally the only way these applicants are able to survive because they need 3 years. They have to be paying rent the entire time they're waiting.
Right.
Los Angeles just issued 5 licenses, or the state issued 5 permanent licenses for applicants in Los Angeles who had applied in 2019, and they just received their permanent license.
it's amazing that anybody got a permanent license.
Yeah, it is, and it's it's supposed to be speeding up now, but there's been
That's what all that extra money was for.
huge we just talked about it last month. Huge infusion of money from California is going to these cities again to expedite the licensing process, but it's all very expensive to create and do anything in cannabis in California, which is also going to be an issue with the legalization problem federally, is that once you get interstate trade happening, which is provided in this bill, the states are going to be able to allow their state not to participate in it, but you can't stop transport across state lines. But so like, Oregon might not want California weed, or California is not going to want Oregon weed
Right.
coming in
Because it's a
because
lot
it's
less
so
expensive.
expensive to create cannabis in California as opposed to Oregon, same with Washington. So it's much less per gram to create in Oregon than it is in California.
Right,
so
right.
they're dying to get stuff out.
Right.
And that's in the.
No, that's in something else. I'd like you to move on to this story, though.
Oh, I thought we already talked about that.
Okay, yeah, I guess we kind of have. I said, yeah, if you've only read one thing, that's totally fine. We can.
But we
keep
can
moving.
keep talking about that story. if you
I
want
just
to bring
think
it
it's
up again.
really, really.
I don't
important.
have any confidence in this going anywhere. I mean, I know it's in there. I know it's in the spending bill. It's going to get through, but I mean, I don't.
It's in there.
It's
It's more of this thing that we were talking about, the pointing either way. But in that bill, it restricts funds to punish banks for working with cannabis businesses. So that'd
Right.
be a big deal.
right. So is that going to incentivize more banks? You think
Yeah,
to get involved?
I think
despite the lack of descheduling.
I think it will potentially get the banks to talk to their lawmakers to deschedule it or change the scheduling so that they can then go ahead. I think it needs to build that excitement. You know what I mean? Biden wants to continue to restrict DC autonomy, which is sort of a big deal because he publicly said he wants DC to become a state.
There's nothing he said that he's actually
Right.
followed up on.
That's true.
So
That's true.
not surprising at all.
That bill really does provide for a lot of research stuff. So it's good. So you can thank your lawmakers for creating this part, but you also have to tell them to deschedule the thing so that we can actually do the things that they're talking about.
Well, these are all, unfortunately, I think it's quite possible that this hodgepodge piecemeal way is going to be the way it's going to move forward. The safe banking bill really is the only thing that has any type of real bipartisan support, and another Republican just signed on to it, and Roy Blunt, I think, to be blunt, signed on to it. So, and that actually may get through despite Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, those people that are saying it's not, and a lot of people in social equity are saying, wait, no, we need the banking bill to happen.
Of course.
And the argument is we need access to capital too. Now,
Sure.
the big guys are obviously setting up for, getting in there, but then their partners in social equity are going to be advantaged to get more money out there too. I mean, there's no way they're going to get equity financing if there is a banking bill. So it is a social equity issue, banking, despite corporate cannabis. Corporate cannabis is here. There's no stopping it.
There is no stopping.
There's no stopping corporate cannabis.
It's America.
Yeah.
This is America.
It's America.
Um,
Yeah, we are a corporation, for Christ's sake.
yeah. And speaking of hypocrisy,
Speaking of money.
has anybody been watching the Olympics? We're not really sportsy.
Well, I was going to watch the Olympics, but You know, because cannabis takes the world stage and all.
Well, cannabis has taken the world stage in that we've seen a tremendous contrast between how two people are being treated.
And what I don't understand is if, and I was going to play the video, maybe I will, but I was going to play the video of Edwin Moses in his testimony before Congress talking about how they made this decision. And it was heartbreaking. And she wasn't the only one this year. And whether you're 80 or 8, the rules are the rules. Everybody knows the rules. They can only change the rules every 5 years, apparently. All the members get to comment, and all of the countries that are involved have a veto. Basically, have a veto on the rule, saying, "Well, no, it's illegal here in our state. You know, we're not going to make it legal."
So when did they vote that CBD was legal?
Well, that's what I want to know. Is when did CBD must have fallen in that window? You got to lean forward, otherwise you disappear.
I'm confused.
We have to work out
We're
this
like
thing.
ghosts.
I'm
Confused.
So CBD got totally taken off that list, and because it's legal internationally now, right? So
Yeah, CBD. Yeah.
yeah. So somehow it fell within that window, and but not all of the countries are on board CBD.
Right.
Tokyo, Japan,
For instance.
Rapinoe doesn't have her CBD in Tokyo because they don't allow it in that form, I guess, or anyway, I don't think they even allow it, do they, in Tokyo?
I don't think so.
Japan?
Cannabis is highly
But
illegal
She doesn't have it.
in Japan.
She doesn't have her
So
stuff.
it's likely she's not traveling with CBD. So, but this is a real significant hypocrisy that is playing out on the world stage, and sports fans are noticing.
Oh yeah. Well, it's I get that, and just on top of it, it's like, hey, and I'm selling my CBD, by the way, and I'm also, which is just like,
It's so American.
it's so American,
It's so
and
perfectly American.
she fits right in. Good for her. And
Yeah, I think it's great that she's talking about CBD. First, I was like, oh,
it's
yeah,
great for CBD.
She's bringing lots of news,
Totally.
towards CBD. But then the Sha'Carri Richardson thing happened, and I'm like,
And then it goes too well, and she talks about I use it for recovery and what all the stuff she uses it for. Before she, is it her that she takes it morning, noon, and night? She takes it in the morning before, and then
as you should.
Is it a performance enhancer?
More studies, and luckily this bill will allow for more studies.
I mean, what did was it Phelps? All the biggest winners are all potheads.
So
But,
maybe it is a performance enhancer. Who knows? We need more studies.
So we need more study.
But really, all of this to me, all of the stories, everything that I've read, all of the movement forward, to me, harkens back to us activists and early adopters, talking to our friends and loved ones, talking to our electeds, sending letters, writing emails, making those phone calls. I think that, and telling our stories. Telling our stories. We tell my mom's story as often as we possibly can, so that other people can see that cannabis is not the devil's lettuce. So do keep it up, you guys. Do keep it up. Keep doing everything that you're doing. Maybe do 10% more.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget to comment. We've got until September 1st to get our comments into,
Yes.
and all of the organizations are collecting comments to formalize their comments.
But you should send it to
September 1st.
your electeds directly.
All of it. You should send it to the email, which we've dropped which is I'll drop it again in the chat here.
Yeah, the special email that they're collecting.
cannabis_reform@finance.senate.gov is the direct comment email. There's no form or anything on their site or anything for the Senate to do it. You have to do it that way, or you can do it through Normal. Normal is doing they want to know what people think. Most lobbying organizations, state lobbying, industry organizations are formalizing their comments, and you can let them know if you're part of that.
But a lot of industry organizations are really business oriented. So if you really believe in cannabis as medicine and plants are healing things, you need to go outside of those business.
Well, that's where I think our, part of our comments need to be, and we can look at Americans for Safe Access. They're actually
And Patients
commenting.
Out of
They're
Time.
commenting on another White House commentary, that
Which
they've
is
asked for,
also something you need to do.
which we'll bring up and talk about because we haven't talked about that yet.
Okay.
But as far as this goes, how about if you're going to do a 10 to 25% tax, make it for adult use
Yeah,
and give the tax break to patients.
absolutely.
If they've got a state card,
Yeah,
or make it whatever bar you like,
make it accessible.
make it accessible if you can, but give patients a tax break for federal taxes.
Absolutely.
That would be something that I think we should comment on
Yeah,
and make sure that changes.
yeah.
And I don't think patient is even mentioned in the bill, draft bill. Remember, this is not a bill.
Right, right.
No
Discussion.
No bill exists.
It's a discussion bill.
So
okay?
it could all be malarkey.
Well, it's
It could
something
all
we
be just
want to talk
posturing.
about. It's good to talk about. We
A lot
should.
of-
It is posturing
lot of
because
re-elections
remember,
coming
it's Cannabis 2022, guys.
It's going to be all over the ballot.
It's Super Cannabis 2022.
All over the ballot, and it's going to get more votes than politicians, as we saw in the previous elections. I don't know, it's 20. Maybe it is 2022. Schumer, but he's up for re-election soon. As with we're having a little streaming issue here. Getting yellow. There, we're back in the green. Okay. Yeah. So get your comments in. Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments. What do you want to know in this bill? What changes do you want in this? Or what do you want in the bill that comes up? As I said, they've got, not only do they have a problem with 10 Republicans, they've got a problem with 4 Democrats, at least, with getting on board some form of legalization or descheduling, which might be one of the biggest rubs. And of course, the social justice aspect of it. We'll see how far that goes with the conservatives. But, we'll see what comes out of this draft. But let's tell them, you got to tell them what they want. Tell them what we want. Otherwise, they don't know. And literally nothing, a lot of this doesn't happen without patients and other people being vocal once they've been discriminated against. Very similar to...
Or left behind entirely, like when our California governor, Governor Newsom, last term, vetoed Ryan's Law. And I got into it this week with somebody who represents some cannabis business organizations in California because I called out Governor Newsom for his bullshit not supporting patients with Ryan's Law. And this organization got quite angry with me because he's done so much for cannabis business. Well, that's nice. He's done nothing for cannabis patients.
Well, SB 34 also took 2 times, right? To go through.
It took a lot of arm twisting. It took
Which is the
threat
compassionate bill.
Yeah, it took a threat of outing him for being a terrible person for him to sign it.
Yeah.
So he is not a friend to cannabis patients. He might be a friend to cannabis business, but he's not a friend to cannabis
He's
patients.
a friend of that $1 billion that comes in from cannabis taxes.
Yeah, he's a friend to the money.
In California.
As are a lot of Democrats. So, not saying that Republicans are any better, let's just be clear. But, like the majority of Americans, most are independents, not Republican, not Democrat. So pro-legalization in Governor Newsom's case means pro-business. That's what it means. So make sure to write Governor Newsom, too, while you're writing, that he needs to get some courage and be pro-patient if he wants to be called pro-cannabis.
And that's why the senator that and co-sponsor of, or primary sponsor of Ryan's Law wants some clarification from the feds on using medical marijuana in hospitals, federally funded hospitals, because this was one of the reasons. Facility settings. Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons that Newsom vetoed Ryan's Law last time.
But the governor of Virginia just signed it, just to be clear. They have a similar law in Virginia. Mm-hmm. That governor didn't seem to have a problem with it.
And Ryan's Law will be coming back up in the legislative session here when they come back from recess. California is currently in recess through August 16th, but they will be taking up a number of cannabis legislative pieces that are happening, which I find over on Marijuana Moment's legislative tracking page, which is quite, I have big, many people will notice that most of the news that we find, and many other cannabis news stations find, come from Marijuana Moment,
Sure.
Because they are the best.
They're excellent reporting.
There is no other.
So you should support them if you can. However you can. Share their stories.
I am a supporter.
Of course.
So I don't know why I'm not signed in, because I don't know. But I do get in there and follow the bills, and their reporting is just exemplary. And there's no challengers in the space. I mean, there are culture magazines and other places and business magazines that do some news, but really. And does Marijuana Moment cover patients always as well as we'd like? Maybe not.
No, but they always have some
but
stories.
They always do.
Yeah, they always have some stories.
And they're, Kyle Yeager and all the staff over there.
Yeah.
Great writers, and they're always right on. I mean, that's where all the breaking news comes from. Everybody gets their news from Marijuana Moment. And I don't know why I went off on that rant, but shout out and thanks to Marijuana Moment for all you do. We are supporters. But that's basically how I found out that nothing going on in California till August 16th, and several bills will be coming back regards to cannabis. Finishing up here, Brian's law.
Didn't you find that out at the CCIA?
And the CCIA.
Yeah, California Cannabis Industry Association, of which we are members.
They have a great legislative tracker too for California bills.
Yep.
They do amazing work. That's true. It's dual pronged. But there are a number. I mean, are they business focused? Absolutely business focused. But
this is America.
yeah, and it's really, and it's, were the rest of the states going to become like California and pass Prop 215 and have a really awesome working medical system that was never bothering nobody? Now, do we have a wider variety of products that we know are tested and clean? And
we have a great variety of products.
Numerous different ways of
but they're too
administrating.
expensive. Let's just be clear.
It's the only commodity that's ever been turned into a mass market that the price has gone up.
The taxes are really outrageous. I have noticed that dispensaries in Los Angeles, anyway, are giving first-time customers a 30% discount, which accounts for most of the taxes.
Most of the taxes, not all of them.
So when you go to a new dispensary the first time, you think, oh, okay, this is, it's expensive, but it's not outrageous. And then the next time you go back, you're hit with an extra 30% because of the taxes, and you just are like, wow, and then you want to try to maybe grow your own, and you're faced with, will your landlord let you? Are you in a city that allows it? And then the individual, will your neighbor complain? There's a lot of hurdles still, a lot of disincentivization. So keep pushing the envelope, keep pushing the boundaries, keep pushing your legislators, keep pushing your neighbors and friends to accept cannabis as a normal thing.
I'm like, well, Garcetti's on his way out. He's headed to greener pastures
in India.
Jilly Love says the ordinance Garcetti just passed in LA prohibits houseless people from being 500 feet from anywhere.
Yes, no, Garcetti is criminalized. Garcetti, it's really, and the council criminalized homelessness, which is outrageous and insane.
Oh boy, and they did a good job too. They were efficient. We went down to Venice actually with our family, and there were no homeless down there anymore.
They do sweeps in Los Angeles all the time.
It's really
moving from one place
obscene.
to another, rather than finding solutions to the issue. They've, poured money hand over fist, and it just gets diluted into corporate hands and organizations that may be serving a fraction of the people that need serving.
Another racket.
But I do know of an organization in San Francisco that helps connect houseless people with cannabis and CBD, which is actually quite extraordinary.
With CBD? Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
But still,
CBD is turning
it'd be
out to
much
be amazing.
better. It'd be much better to connect people with housing, But that's another show. That is another show. This show is all about patient access,
Well-
health policy in our booming future. And our future is bright. So keep writing
What's
your
booming?
electeds.
Booming is lots of research. The research pipeline is filling up. It's really getting exciting. Is pharmaceutical going to make a play? They're going to definitely.
If
They're
we
gonna
want
be there.
if we want older people to embrace it, pharmaceutical has to be involved.
Yeah.
Because most older people are still brainwashed with the 85 years of propaganda we've all been under. Some of us have just been able to see through the smoke, as it were. But anyway, I feel like we have pretty well covered the news for this month.
Well, certainly the headlines. As I say, we're going to do a little more deeper dive into what's going on with social equity in future shows because it's a mess. It's a mess.
Well, again, that's something we need to write our electeds about, that we see you. We see you. The whole world is watching. We see you. We see you're fucking this up. Excuse me.
And hopefully, we're gonna. And there are the new states are coming online, and they're trying to implement programs as well. Hopefully, they'll learn from mistakes and what's going on. But it's just a funnel of tax money, is really what it is. They got their taxation. That's the only way these things get passed. Is if a city or a county or something gets it. Like, is it Mendocino or Modesto? Modesto, that was so against cannabis from the beginning, and now they have a pass for cannabis tourism.
So yeah, so many
think it's
places
Modesto.
start off as anti-cannabis and then eventually embrace it.
The grass got greener.
And we're just going to keep continuing to outgrow the government and keep educating people, however, by all means necessary. By all means necessary. So. I want to thank you guys for joining us.
Great
It's
to connect
been
with you.
Really
You
great
too, Jilly
reconnecting.
Love. Thanks for joining us today. We jump on this show once a month to reconnect with you guys and talk about what we found interesting throughout the month about cannabis and other plants that are being controlled throughout the United States and elsewhere. And
if you have any stories that you want to talk about in the
future is pretty great.
It is. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. All you like.
If you guys have any stories in your communities that you want to talk about, please, by all means, drop us a note and we can bring you on the show. We can talk about it, or we can open up to callers.
Yeah, well, we have a Discord channel we can have.
Right, a Discord channel.
We're gonna do Discord, and I think we're gonna just basically, if you want to come on, we'll be able to do Zooms. I don't think we're gonna do that today though.
No.
We're moving. We have some other things we have to take care of this
The
afternoon.
next couple of months, you guys are going to be super busy.
We are in transition. It's we're going to be moving from. We're in a temporary place right now. We're moving from our digs in Sacramento that we've been for the last year, or
6
so,
months.
almost a year, 9 months, 6 months.
6
How long
months.
we've been
Since
in Sacramento?
October of last year.
Since we hit the road back in, it was a
Since
giant
October.
road trip. So we're moving back down from there this month and into our, what we'd consider a more permanent.
Yeah, we're back.
Residents.
Move back to LA.
Back to
As
LA.
much as we would love to live near Jilly Love.
And we'll be
this
coming
is-
back.
Yeah, this is where we.
We're
make our living.
we're hoping when we come up in September to move, we should go visit.
We should go visit. We'll see what happens.
We should plan a visit to Chile
I'm hoping.
before we scoot out of the northern area. This
I don't know if it's
this
gonna happen.
summer.
I don't know if it's gonna happen. Anyway,
It's a tight
it's
deal.
A subject for another.
We have
show.
to. We're back. We have to be back. We're going to be back for CanMed in LA
That's
in
right.
September. So we're going to be at CanMed. Hopefully we can broadcast from CanMed. That
Yeah,
might be fun.
hopefully we can go live a few times.
But we're definitely going to CanMed. CanMed is the most amazing.
An excellent medical conference. If you are in the LA area or anywhere nearby, it is really not to be missed. It's excellent. I highly recommend saving up the money to go.
And we will be going to the Emerald Cup too. So we will be going back
And
up
the Emerald Cup.
for the Emerald Cup.
Yes,
So we
so
could always do that.
The Emerald
can always
Cup
visit them.
is another really, really great cannabis conference because it has such a strong medical track.
If you only do 2 conferences in the world, stay away from the business shit.
Yeah.
Go to CanMed and go to
Emerald Cup.
and you're covered on culture, you're covered on medicine,
Yeah.
And LADAD. Of course,
And we'll see you there.
And we'll see you there. Exactly. We
All
are
right.
we are biased because we're California.
Yeah.
Cool,
Cool. Well, anyway, you guys, thank you so much again
everybody.
for joining us. And
follow
we'll see you
me
next month.
on Twitter at DC420LA. Actually, on all of the socials, but I'm mostly on Twitter. Hoping to change that, but it's really a conundrum. Trying to get off the socials, but there's really no other way to do this. Which you can't do it because of the throttling. So
You
it's all
could just do
it's all
whatever
very
you
nutty.
want to do and
Do
not
what you
worry
want
about it.
Exactly. So
We do it because of the love.
I do the breaking news on Twitter. Chella's also at Al's Notes. We do Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast over at Cannabis Helps. Also on your podcast servers, all of them.
Yeah, wherever
Cannabis
you
Helps
find
Dementia.
your podcast.
We've got new
Cannabis Helps
episodes of
Dementia.
that coming up. We've got great interviews in the can, so we're going to be putting out some new episodes of the podcast. But we are making the big move, consolidating ourselves into one residence, and so we can get back in the groove with more shows and more engagement with you guys. So thanks a lot for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, T. Luke.
T. Luke.
Welcome.
T.
We'll
Luke.
see you next time.
Thank you very much, T. Luke. Welcome. Subscribe. Get notifications. I do go live, and we'll be going more live
After
spontaneously.
October.
After we move, and that will be out of control during the week when things happen, like that introduction of the bill. So if we have any live press conference or any super breaking news, I'll go live. I'm going to try to do that more often.
Or we'll see you again in this space.
Or we'll see you again
the
the first
first
Saturday of the month
All right.
for Controlled.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much.
Free the plant, free the people. Pot for peace.
Write your electeds.